What's up, everybody? Dewfeather here, PSN the Nightman, representing Medieval Militia Guild on the PlayStation 4 Neverwinter. Also, shout out to our Alliance, Inglorious Saints. I'm here to talk to you guys about my character build. I primarily play my devoted cleric as a Anointed champion. Right now I'm in the Divine Oracle loadout because I just finished an FBI run. But we're going to talk about my essentially my two loadouts, my Anointed champion, my Divine Oracle, and I'm going to go through them and give you guys an idea of how I set them. So we'll start with my Anointed champion. I just have to run into the stronghold here so I can switch to that loadout. Okay, so we will start with stats. For stats, for your primary stats, I put all of mine into wisdom and into strength. I did not put any into charisma because you eventually, when you get endgame, this becomes overkill and you benefit more from strength than you do charisma. And I have tested it and I stand by it. You're going to want to put into strength and to wisdom. If you're lower skilled, say less than, I would go as far as 11,000 item level, then maybe charisma while you're still building up your AP gain and your recovery. But really, I think you could start right from the beginning with putting them into strength. Really, it's a matter of preference. I personally believe strength is best in slot for your stats. Gear. I'm just going to quickly go over the gear. My gear is not all best in slot. I just haven't been as lucky as some, and also I'm kind of holding out for more for the new Masterwork armor. So I'm still rocking the Jarl's Gaze. I'm using the Historian's Regalia. I've been using this for a while. I like the critical strike that it gives me. I gave up a little bit of power for the critical strike. It is, I'm going to say this is unusual, and it's kind of a test that I've been doing. It's not best in slot. I do want to change it, but it also did give me a little bit more balance, and I did like that. I'm big on balance. Anyways, oh, I should mention I'm using a Transcendent Bark Shield. I highly recommend. If you're a cleric and you're not running a Bark Shield, you're missing out. This is the best armor enchantment you can have. I normally run through FBI. I don't die. I barely take damage. I'm still using Dragonflight braces, restoration. I am using the relic weapons. They are ready to go to legendary. Just I need one more mark for my main hand, and then I gotta farm some more for my offhand. But as you can see, I'm using a Transcendent Frost enchantment as my weapon enchantment. Personally, I believe it's best in slot, especially if you're buff debuff. You could go with a Dread. You could go with a Plague Fire if you wanted to. I think if you had to choose, if I had to choose, put them in order, I think it would go. I think, well, really, I just think Frost is ahead, and then Dread and Plague Fire are just a close second, distant and behind, I guess. Dread's better if you're planning on DPSing more. Other than that, I go with the Frost. The thing with the Frost is it's not really viable until you get it to Transcendent. So rock Plague Fire until you can afford to get the Frost Transcendent. Then on my feet, I'm using the relic boots because they're a lot easier to get and restore. On this side, I am using the Tiamat's Demise Amulet. I have a Ring of Brutality, which I will be replacing actually in the next couple of days with a legendary Helig Ring from Storm King Thunder campaign. I'll be keeping my Rising Ring of Power for now, because I don't have anything to replace that with. I'm using the Greater Belt of Wisdom, which I highly recommend. I used to rock the Tiamat set, and I made the decision last double refinement to switch to the Wisdom Belt. Once again, I highly recommend it. And then these are pretty standard. Pretty much everybody's running these. I am running all powers, all radiant for power in my offense slot, and all azures in my defense slot to stack defense. Eventually, I will switch to a 100% cruel in offense. Eventually. But right now, it's all radiance for power and all azures for defense. Artifacts, Sigil of Devoted is my main. I have the Sigil of the Hunter. That's probably not best in slot, but I also rock a Hunter, so this kind of came easy to me, and it's just always been there. I have the Tiamat Orbs still, and I also have the Symbol of Fire. The Symbol of Fire for me is I wanted the defense. There are other options you could run, but I wanted the defense as the other stat. And I'll explain that why later. Okay, let's go to feats. These feats are pretty standard. You will probably see them in a lot of different builds. Personally, I think you can kind of tinker away from these, but this is pretty much the blueprint for most good clerics. You want to get the more wisdoms. That's why you're stacking Greater Fortune full. You want to get more healing from your wisdom. I mean, because we're stacking our wisdom as high as we can, and it's just beneficial. You want to get your maximum hit points up as high as possible. That's why we're going 3 out of 3 on this. A lot of your healing spells oftentimes are a percentage of your healing. The higher your hit points, they're a percentage of your hit points. So the higher your hit points, the more healing you're doing. Domain Synergy. We want to have more recovery. Simple as that. So we go 3 out of 5 on that one. And our critical chance by 3%, that's a no-brainer. We got to put this stuff somewheres. We're not putting it into some of these other things that are a waste. Repurpose Soul. This is pretty standard. This is useless to us. Cleanse, I highly recommend at least one in here. This helps with cleansing your allies when you're in fights with bosses, usually that involve poisoning you. FBI for one, very important. And Bountiful Fortune. This is super important. You want to use this, and you want to almost max it out. If you're using a class that gives you the extra feats, you're going to max that out. Probably put another one here, and you can probably choose between both in there, or one here, one there, and one for Bountiful. Anyways, we're going to go up to Virtuous. 5 out of 5, we want to heal more. 5 out of 5 for Battle Fever. This is just standard. You're wanting maximizing your power sharing. And then we're going to go to Gift of Haste. We're going to help out with AP gain. It's pretty standard. We're going to help our allies. Down to Righteous. We want to generate more action points when dealing damage, obviously. We're going to be healing people when we're spamming Anointed Army. We're also going to give them some action points. Like, we're spamming Anointed Army so much that it doesn't make sense not to load this up. Weapons of Light. Again, power sharing, standard. This is what this build is all about. We're going to go to Barrier Sins, which was fixed recently. If a lot of you guys may not be aware that this was not working properly for the longest time. I think it was not the last update, but the update before that, this was fixed. This is mandatory. You need to put 5 out of 5 on this. Condemning Gaze, again, very important. You could almost do a whole video on how to properly stack this and Barrier Sins. So 5 out of 5. We'll just leave it at that. Fire of the Gods. This is a great feat. I at least one in here. At least one. If you're going more DPS, I would imagine you're going to want to use this more, but we are a debuff build, so one of there is fine. And then obviously we're going to pick Avatar of the Divine. Go to boons. I'm just going to quickly go through the boons. Very simple. Again, a lot of these are very standard to many builds that you guys are probably going to see. We're going to pick, I have the experience one as my utility because I don't have anything available right yet. I'm using defense, and I'm using power. Shandar. And you guys can pause the video as you need if you're going to be setting yours, if you're respeccing just as we go through this. Generally with this build, what you're doing is you're stacking as much power, recovery, and AP gain as possible. Once you get to a certain level of AP gain though, really you can start stacking defense and deflect, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. See, there's a choice where I took deflect, and there's a choice where I took defense. The other option was armor pen or crit, and we went with deflect over crit because I actually do use an owlbear cub, and we want to use the deflect because of our mountain signias. But anyways, lifesteal. Split this one up between lifesteal and control strength. I can assure you this is not the most exciting part of the video. But it is important. Now obviously I don't have Storm King Thunder campaign complete. I'm still missing the 2 last boons. If I were to pick again, I would probably put probably one into Chill of Winter and probably the second one back into Healing Warmth. Honestly, not a deal breaker. All of these are kind of pretty awful for the Cleric. And Cloaked. You want to use that Aura of Hope. It's terrific. Anytime you can help your allies out with AP gain or cooldowns, you want to be running it. Crit, Severity, and Recovery. I don't have the third one unlocked. Again, these are all pretty terrible for the Cleric. If I had to pick one right now, I'd probably take this one to have the small chance to slay them outright, because I think that's kind of cool. Okay, one thing I did forget to mention is weapon powers, artifact powers on the weapon. You're going to want to run Astra Seal for increased healing done. That's the best one you can run. You get the most benefit. And offhand, you want to run Hastening Light. Point gain, you want to get that as close to 400. Companion. I'm running a con artist as my main. Love them. I'm obviously using bonding runestones. In here, I'm stacking recovery and defense on my equipment.
Are you doing anything, RN?
So the reason why I am stacking recovery and defense is because you're not going to be able to power share any power that you get off when you proc your bondings. So you're going to get the most benefit from stacking recovery and defense. And these obviously are not best in slot. I'm still working on my enchantments in there. And yeah. I'm using the 2 sprites for the action point gain. I'm using the Air Archon for the increased damage. And like I mentioned before, I'm using the Owlbear Companion, which is pretty awesome. When I got this guy a couple weeks ago, my damage went up a huge amount. Now I know I'm a cleric and my job is not to be DPS. However, when you can chip in, it does make the difference. You don't want to be thinking DPS primary, but the little things that you can do to bring yourself into the fight where you're helping out, it does make a huge difference, in my opinion. Okay. Mounts. I was fortunate enough to get a legendary pack not that long ago, and I took the Lion. The reason I took the Lion is because of the combat power. I personally believe the combat power is the best in slot for the buff debuff cleric, because you're getting a buff debuff in that combat power, and I think it's pretty awesome. I'm still using the equip power from my embellished Gond, which gives me 15% of my total action points over 10 seconds every time I use a daily power. And let's go to insignias. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about insignias. Insignias, you want to stack as much power as possible because all the power in your insignias is power shared. I haven't done that. I have stacked a lot of recovery in there because it's cheaper. The mastery is a lot cheaper than the dominance. Eventually, if you want to be best in slot, you want to mostly have power in there, but I think this is a good place to provide a little bit of balance for your character. So you will notice I do have some aggression in there to try and get a little bit of armor pen. I will have some insignias of skills for a little bit of critical strike. But I like mostly if you're doing it to the book, you're going to stack as much dominance in here to get as much power as possible for power sharing. In terms of actual insignia bonuses, Assassin's Covenant is an absolute. This is where I'm talking about stacking defense and deflection because you're turning it into power. And right now, my whole character is based on this Assassin's Covenant. This is an absolute. If you're not going to run Assassin's Covenant, do not follow my build because it will not be beneficial to you. Protector's Camaraderie. Again, you're gaining more power. Anything that you can pick here that's going to give you more power or recovery, mostly power though, that's what you want to do. So I'm using this, every time I use an artifact power, I'm getting recovery, movement gain, or action point gain, stamina gain, right? And this incorporates my power as well. This one I have in there just because I don't really have a better option at this point. And it's kind of nice to get a little heal every once in a while. And then I'm using this one twice actually, which increases the benefit. Okay. That is mostly everything about the character. I could go over the powers. I'll just quickly do it. You're going to run Astra Seal and Blessing of Battle as your 2 at-wills. Um, Divine Glow and Break the Spirit are going to basically be in there all the time, and then you can switch between Bastion, Chains, and Astral Shield. You're going to be running Anointed Army, spamming it as much as possible. I also use Hallowed Ground. As your class features, you're going to want to be using Hastening Light, and you're going to go all the way up here to Holy Fervor, or Fever, whatever it is, for more action point gain. And your rotation is simply going to be, you're going to go 3 Blessing of Battle to get to full Divinity. You're going to do some combination of your 2 encounters to set yourself up for an empowered Break the Spirit. Okay, that's basically my Anointed Champion. Quickly, I will switch over to my my Divine Oracle, and I'll quickly tell you the differences. All my gear stays the same. I do not bother changing out my enchantments. If I really wanted to, you could go and I could switch some of my Azures and my Radiance and just flip them, so that my Azures were in my offense and my Radiance were in my defense. So basically I'm trading power for crit and defense for hit points. You could do that a little bit. I don't bother. I find it works just fine for me. Stats, they stay the same. Powers, they stay the same, mostly. Because you're going to have a few new ones. But you're going to basically run Astro Seal, and you're going to run it with Brand of the Sun. Brand of the Sun is your bread and butter in this build. Then you're going to run, I personally run Chains. I kind of DPS with this DO. I run Chains, Prophecy of Doom, and Divine Glow. I run Divine Armor and Hallowed Ground as my dailies. And my class features are Terrifying Insight, which is an absolute must. If you're not using Terrifying Insight, you're doing it wrong. And also, what am I running right now for my other class feature? Oh, Hastening Light, obviously. Yes. You could use Astral Shield. You could use Bastion again. You could use Forge Master's Flame. Prophecy of Doom is very good when you're on a single target. So bosses, I don't really recommend using it for mobs. Switch to something else. Forge Master Flame, Daunting Light, maybe even Break the Spirit. But see, Break the Spirit is not really as useful for a DO because you're not really focusing on power sharing as a DO. Feats. This is where there is a little bit of difference. I'm going to test myself to see if I can remember where those differences are. Oh yes. So I didn't bother using Second Sight because I'm not using Prophecy of Doom as much to make it useful. I'm only really using Prophecy of Doom with bosses. So I put it in to have faith to give them a nice buff. Pretty much everything else is exactly the same. That's the main change for me, is that right there, going from this one to that one. With the boons, there is a big difference. I'm using the same guild boons, so we won't go over that. I'm just going to quickly show these ones. I'm not going to talk about it really, because we've already had this video going for quite a while, but essentially you're not going to stack as much AP gain. It's not as important. You're not going to stack as much power. It's not as important. You're going to stack kind of more towards the DPS end, where you're going to pick crit over a couple of things. You're still going to want to get power, but it's not as important as it is with the Anointed Champion. Dread Ring. And again, like before, you guys can pause the video if you need to take your time. Icewind Dale. Underdark, Tyranny, Maze Engine, Elemental Evil, Storm King, Cloaked. And then companions, everything stays the same. Again, if you really wanted to, you could switch these out. You could stack crit, and I would stack probably crit and recovery if you could somehow maybe balance them out. Um, maybe still go with defense because you're still going to be using Assassin's Covenant. Covenant is still going to be good for you. Yeah, and then Mount Insignias, they all stay the same. I don't change it. And that's because this character is not a true Divine Oracle. I'm not going to spend a fortune every time I switch loadouts to switch enchantments and stuff like that. Um, as you guys can tell, my gold tends to go away. I'm not exactly rich. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any questions, put in the comments. I'll try my best to answer them. As always, you can also look me up on PSN. I'm always willing to help people out if they want to learn more about the Divine or the Devoted Cleric class. And yeah, happy gaming, guys. Thanks for watching.